The spooky Black Hollow Asylum. Black Hollow Asylum had been empty for almost 50 years, falling apart and reminding everyone of a time when medical care was much less caring. The asylum was on a lonely hill near a thick forest. It used to be a place for people with mental illnesses, those who committed serious crimes, and others that society wanted to ignore. But the building, with its shattered windows and vines climbing up the walls like bony fingers, would not be ignored. People in the nearby town of Ridgefield whispered about the asylum. Parents told their kids to stay away from the hill, but teenagers liked to challenge each other to go there at night. They never got too close, but they always bragged about it afterward. There were stories, or really just rumors, about people who went inside and never came back out. Others came back, but they were changed, as if something in the asylum had taken away their spark. Claire Bennett, a 28-year-old filmmaker who loved to explore dark and creepy topics, had always been interested in the asylum. Claire was set on finding out the truth about the stories connected to Black Hollow. She had heard the tales. People who were hurt instead of helped by treatments, doctors who turned from caring to cruel, and the well-known story about the ghost of Dr. Elias Warren, the main doctor at the asylum, was believed to still walk the halls, carrying on with his experiments on both the living and the dead. Claire didn't believe in things like ghosts or magic. She trusted real information, proof, and the ability of a good story to reveal the truth. When she chose to make her next documentary about the history of Black Hollow, she got her team, her childhood best friend Mark, her sound technician Jake, and her camera operator Tara, to stay in the asylum for 3 nights. "You're crazy, Claire," Mark said when she first mentioned her idea. "Do you want to stay for 3 nights in a place where people have really lost their minds?" "That's why we need to go," Claire said. "No one has ever written down what really happened inside. It's just stories and rumors that have been told for many years. We can be the first to share the true story." Mark, always a helpful friend, finally agreed, and so did the rest of the group. On a chilly autumn afternoon, the 4 of them packed their things into the van and drove for an hour to Black Hollow. As they got closer to the asylum, the air felt colder and the sky looked darker, even though it was still early in the day. The tall shape of Black Hollow stood in front of them, a rough shadow against the tree-filled background. The front gates were rusty and bent, making a scary noise as they opened. The air smelled of rotting things and wet soil. "Wow, this is nice," Jake said quietly, fixing his sound gear. Claire gave him a glance. "We're not here to be comfortable. We're here to help you find answers." They walked in through the main doors, which were slightly open. Inside the asylum, there were many narrow hallways, old paint was chipping off the walls, and there was junk from years of ignoring the place. It looked like the place was left quickly. Medical equipment was lying around on the floors, and papers and patient files were spread out on the desks. But it was the quiet that bothered them the most. It felt heavy and almost suffocating, as if the building was waiting quietly. "This place makes me feel scary," Tara said quietly while she fixed her camera. Claire smiled slyly. "That's the main idea." They pitched their tents in the main entrance hall, a big room with tall ceilings and a large chandelier hanging above them. They started looking around the different parts of the asylum, with each section focused on a different type of treatment: electric shock therapy, lobotomies, and isolation. As Claire walked through the halls, she talked to the camera about the terrible past of the place. She explained how patients had gone through awful experiments for science and how many had died because of Dr. Warren's help. The first night went by without anything happening. They recorded interviews with local history experts, put together the dark story of the asylum, and walked through the hallways with flashlights, hoping to find something interesting for their documentary. But on the second night, things started to get different. It began with the noises. It started off quiet, hardly heard over the noise of their machines, but soon it got louder, footsteps echoing far away, whispers that couldn't be understood, and doors opening and closing by themselves. "Do you hear that?" Mark asked as they stood in what used to be the asylum's operating room. Jake nodded, looking very pale. "It's likely just the wind. Old buildings like this make many different sounds." But Claire didn't believe it. "Keep filming," she told Tara. "If something is here, I want to record it." They went further into the asylum, following the noises, until they reached the basement, a spot none of them wanted to go to. The air down there was heavy with mold and decay, and the walls were covered with soft cells that used to hold very dangerous patients. As they walked down the narrow hallway, Claire felt a sudden cold that was much colder than anything she had felt outside. She was cold, and you could see her breath. "Do you feel that?" she asked softly. "Yeah," Mark said, his eyes big. "It's really cold down here." "That's not possible," Tara said as she looked at her thermometer. The temperature went down 20 degrees in 1 minute. Before they could respond, the lights on their cameras went out, leaving them in the dark. Jake swore quietly and looked for a flashlight. When the light turned on, they weren't alone anymore. At the end of the hallway, in the low light, there was a person who was hard to see. It was tall and its face was hidden in the shadows, but its eyes glowed softly in the dark, looking cold and empty. Claire's heart was beating fast, but she tried to stay calm. "Who's?" she called out, her voice shaking a little. The shape didn't change. It just stood there, looking at them. "Claire," Mark said quietly, his voice shaky with fear. "We have to leave. Now," but Claire couldn't get up. She couldn't move and stared at the person. It moved forward slowly, taking one step and then another, as if it was enjoying the fear it was creating. Suddenly, the lights turned on again, and the person was gone. The hallway was empty, but there was still a feeling of fear that felt strong in the air. "We're leaving this place," Jake said, his voice unsteady. "I'm not interested in the documentary anymore, this place is. It's not right." But Claire didn't want to go yet. "We can't go, not at this time. We have found something important. There's something here that no one has ever seen before." "That's right," Mark said sharply. "Maybe there's a good reason for that. You saw what happened. That wasn't a person." "We're staying," Claire said confidently. "We complete this, only one more night." The others agreed, but they were not happy about it, and none of them were able to sleep that night. The noises got louder and more intense. Objects moved by themselves, cabinets opened and shut loudly, and chairs slid across the floor. And always, in the distance, they saw it, the figure. Waiting by the third night, the crew was tense, tired, and scared. But Claire kept going, wanting to get clear proof that the asylum was haunted. They placed their cameras in the surgery room, where Dr. Warren had done his well-known lobotomy surgeries. As they sat in the dark, waiting for something to occur, a deep, scary sound came from somewhere in the room. Suddenly, the temperature dropped again, and the lights went out. Tara yelled when the shape showed up in the middle of the room, its eyes shining even brighter. This time, it moved around. It came closer to them quickly, with its arms wide open. "Run!" Claire yelled, but there was no place to escape. The doors slammed shut, locking them inside. The person got to Jake first. He tried to resist, but his body went weak when it made contact with him, and his eyes rolled back. Mark and Tara were next. Their screams stopped suddenly when the figure took their life with just one touch. Claire was the last one. She moved into a corner, her heart beating fast, and her thoughts running wild. This wasn't the way it was meant to finish. She was meant to reveal the truth, not get involved in it. The shape stood above her, its bright eyes staring into hers. As it reached out, Claire felt a freezing chill all over her, colder than being dead. Nothing when the people in town saw the crew's van parked at the entrance of Black Hollow. They thought it was just another group of adventurers trying to challenge each other to go into the asylum. But when nobody came back, the police were contacted. Inside the asylum, they found the cameras, the equipment, and the bodies, but there was no trace of Claire, Mark, Jake, or Tara. The video they found showed a scary story that would never be revealed to anyone. Black Hollow stayed empty, but the story about it got more popular. And those who were brave enough to go inside still said they saw a figure with glowing eyes, watching and waiting for its next victims. If you were captivated by this spine-chilling tale of the Black Hollow Asylum, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more terrifying stories like this. Who knows what haunted places we'll explore next? Stay tuned, if you dare,